Shukran. I'm going back now, bro. Hey. Come a bit closer. Good. نبدأ. إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
First of all, I would like to say Jazakumullahu khaira jami'an to all of the ikhwa wal akhawat who have taken the time out of their busy schedules to attend this lecture entitled Brotherhood, al-Akhuwa. I say that on behalf of myself and on behalf of my dear friend Abdul Wahaab. And as I mentioned before this, we actually began the lecture. His name is Abdul Wahaab, and he's a graduate from the Kulliyah of Sharia, the Kulliyah to Sharia from the Islamic University of Al-Medina. He's American from South Carolina. Well, actually, he's from New York originally. He's from New York, and now he currently resides in South Carolina, where he is a chaplain of various different prisons. The equivalent of like an imam, but in the prisons. But he oversees various different prisons, and inshallah ta'ala, he's going to share some very, very powerful stories about people that his experiences and his encounters of people that he has met from within inside the prison. Now this lecture, ikhwani wa akhawati fillah, is very, very personal to me. Why? Because the whole reason why Abdul Wahaab is sitting here today is because when he heard the news of my cancer, remember I met him back in 2010? Taqreeban? 2010. I was a student, and he used to bug me on MSN or whatever the mode of whatever the mode of communication back 10 years ago was. He used to always message me. I was a student, he wasn't. He used to work in Kuwait. And then I think he applied for the Islamic University at the time, and he'd always be saying, what's the Jamia like, and this and that and the third. And then he would be like, I've applied. Is my name out yet? Is my name out yet? Is my name out yet? And he wouldn't stop. I would come to know 10 years later that this is his character. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Anyway, قدر الله وما شاء فعل. قدر الله وما شاء فعل. A year later, or the next academic year, he got accepted. So we had been speaking for some time before we actually met each other. And then we met each other, and we've been friends ever since. And we've been through a roller coaster of times in Al-Medina. That's a subject for another day, including Abdul Hakim right there. We've got stories for days, and hopefully one day we could all be sitting up here and sharing our experiences of what it was like prior to studying, as we were studying, and after graduation, because I think that a lot of people would take some benefit from it. Ala kulli hal, when Abdul Wahaab heard that I had cancer, he was distraught, as I'm sure many of you were. And because he lives so far away, it's not as easy to come and implement the Islamic rite from a brother over another brother to visit the sick. So he just called me out of the blue one day and said, Akhi, listen, I'm coming over. And there's no other reason to come to the UK except to see you. And I said to him, well, if you're going to come, I'm going to take this opportunity to get you to do a lecture. So he didn't come to give a lecture today, ikhwani. In fact, he didn't want to give the lecture. It was me that kind of twisted his arm and said, if you don't give
bugged
it,
me.
I bugged him now. And if he didn't come to give the lecture, I wouldn't have given him any hospitality. Allah al-Musta'an. But anyway, he's come now, and inshallah ta'ala, without further delay, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Abdul Wahaab. We have to be out of here by 6:30, guys, because we've got another appointment. So inshallah, 45 minutes, and then leave there 15 minutes for question and answers. فليتفضل يا فضيلة الشيخ.
بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ثم أما بعد. First and foremost, as I'm not going to make this a long thing. One, I'd like to apologize, excuse my accent. I get very nervous when I speak in front of British people. So that's just one thing. But Ali kulli hal, before we actually go into the muhadara, the lesson in and of itself, there's three things that I want to mention. The first thing I want to mention is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Man la yashkur an-nas la yashkur Allah." Whoever does not think the people has not truly thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, one and first and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone that has come here, and also the administration has made it feasible for me to actually give this lecture. So that's the first and foremost. The second thing I want to talk about is that what happens, and I'm not sure about here, but a lot of times in America, when a person gives a dars or muhadara or whatever it is, they have a tendency to try to give a class, but they exclude themselves from it, the advice. So everything that I say, inshallah, first and foremost is advice for myself, then it's advice to you. Because you want to be in compliance with the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَتَأْمُرُ النَّاسَ بِالْبِرِّ وَتَنْسَوْنَ أَنفُسَكُمْ. So therefore, do you command the people with righteousness while you forget yourself in the process? So having said that, everything that I say is advice for myself first and foremost, and then it's advice to my brothers. The third thing that I want to mention is that no matter what class you are a part of, whether it's this class, whether it's the class that Ismaeel gives, or any other class for that matter, try to find any benefit you can get out of it. This is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in the Quran, وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ ذُكِّرَ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ ثُمَّ أَعْرَضَ عَنْهَا. That who does more wrong to their soul when they're reminded about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ayat of Allah, they do what? They turn away. ثُمَّ أَعْرَضَ عَنْهَا. So therefore, having said that, any advice, anything that you can benefit, right? Alhamdulillah, I don't have that much knowledge, but anything you can benefit from me, or anybody else for that matter, just take it and try to implement it in your life, right? Because you will be asked about it on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So therefore, we are here first and foremost for my own soul. Because I'm a man like anybody else and I have sins like anybody else. And one way to remove these things is by paying zakat of ilm, by teaching the people, and also visiting your brothers for the sake of Allah. This is one of the ways to help yourself on Yawm al-Qiyamah. I don't want to take a long period of time, but it's only going to be 4 things I'm actually going to go over. All right? And the first thing I'm going to mention is the thamarat al-sadaqa fi Islam. The fruit, the benefit, or the fruit of friendship in Islam. The second thing we're going to talk about is as-sadiq alladhi yanfa'uk, the friend that actually benefits you. The third thing we're going to mention is the type of friend that you don't need. Rather, he harms you, whether it be physically or spiritually. وَيَجِبُ عَلَيْكَ أَن تَبْتَعِدْ عَنْهُ. And this individual you have to stay away from, because it harms your religion. And we're going to talk about that. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the importance of being sincere. So again, the 4 things. The first one is, who can remind me?
The friendship of the fruits and benefits of friendship.
Fruits of benefits. You eating the fruit, that's why it threw me off. Huh? But yeah, the benefits of friendship in Islam. The second thing is what?
Friend who benefits you.
Friend who benefits you. The third thing is?
Friend who doesn't benefit you.
The friend who doesn't benefit you. All right, whether physically or spiritually. And the last one is what?
Friends of eternity.
Friends of eternity. Inshallah. And also, the last one is what? The benefits of being sincere. The first thing, Ikhwan, is when we said that the benefits, before I even give my reasons, alhamdulillah, I see that there's some learned brothers here who can name some benefits of the importance of brotherhood in Islam, of having good friends. Now,
The benefits are, like, you can save the brother's life, you can save him from doing a bad thing, you can save him from doing, like, for example, zina, all other bad stuff, and etc.
please, one more. Anybody else? It's the benefit of having good brotherhood.
In the same religion as your close friends.
In the same religion, your close friends. Nah, what I want to mention too, the first and first, you got it? Nah.
No, I was just going to say they influence you the most.
They influence you the most. Nah. What I want to mention too, first and foremost, we are actually, it's tatbiq bima amara Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're actually implementing that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered in the Quran. For those who know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخْوَيْكُمْ. The benefit of that ayah is that not only does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those who have studied Arabic, they know the word innama, is for hasar. It restricts anything that is mentioned afterward, and it negates anything that has came before it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates any other type of brotherhood. He says, innama al-mu'minuna ikhwa, that the believers are brothers. What happens here, ikhwan, is that even amongst brotherhood, and we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything. But Allah followed that verse up, the beginning of the verse, by saying the believers are brothers. He immediately said what? Faslihu, make up. Unfortunately, amongst brotherhood sometimes, ikhwan, it's going to be some friction. You're going to have some experience that, you're not going to agree with. Also, yeah, I love this brother for the sake of Allah, but there's been times where he disagreed with me on religious issues and other stuff like that as well. We'll get into that later. It's just personally. All right? Huh? Please. But there's been other things, alhamdulillah. The point is, there's going to be some friction sometimes. But that doesn't mean he's not your brother anymore. But show of hands, how many people in here have siblings? All right, now it's time for waqt sidq. How many times have you gotten to physical fights with your brothers? No one wants to raise their hand? That's the Huh? They live in other countries. Me, alhamdulillah, I have 3 brothers. And I lost count how many times I actually got into fist fights with my brothers. I won some and I won some. All right? But the whole point is, I never said he wasn't my brother anymore. And the same thing has to go with your deen, ikhwan. If you get into a dispute with each other, you can't just say, this is not my brother anymore. You never had that attitude about your sibling, and you shouldn't have the attitude about your brother. So they get first and foremost, there's some water. See, some water. Yeah. But again, the first thing, and we're talking about the benefit of friendship in Islam is that you're implementing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you to do. The second thing is on Yawm al-Qiyamah, one of the benefits of friendship, of good friendship, is that a person will be able to make shafa'ah for their friend on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Is there anyone in this room that doesn't have any sins by show of hands? The reason why I say that, ikhwan, just as we are meticulous and very picky about how we choose our spouse, you need to have the same attitude about how you choose your friends. Because we all come up short. As everyone just mentioned, everyone in this room has sins, including me. كل بني آدم خطاء وخير الخطائين تواب. All the children of Adam are what? These sinners is not even a good trend. Habitual sinners. خطاء. The habituals, you're never going to get it right. وخير الخطائين تواب. But the best of those who constantly make mistakes are those who repent. Having said this, one of the ways to help yourself out on Yawm al-Qiyamah is that for to have good friendship. Now, why do I mention that? It's mentioned for those who know, and Surah Al-Shu'ara, it's mentioned that what happens when the people of the hellfire are in the hellfire, and the people into Jannah are in Jannah. It's mentioned in the hadith, and we'll go back to Surah Al-Shu'ara, but what happens here is mentioned in the hadith, in various different hadith, Ibn Majah, وغيره. It's mentioned that some of the people, they will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rab, oh my Lord, ayna fulan min fulan? Where is so-and-so and so-and-so? My happiness will not be complete until they are with me in Jannah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, واختلف علماء الحديث, in this part, they would say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will mention أخرجوهم, whether he would tell the malaika or whether he would tell them to go get their friends from the fire. What happens here, ikhwan, is that when the people come out of the fire, those who will remain inside of the fire, they will ask, how are they able to get out? Shafa'atuhum malaika, the malaika, the angels, did they make shafa'ah for them? What did they do? What did they do that was so special? And it will be mentioned that their friend made shafa'ah for them to help them come out of the fire. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, فَمَا لَنَا مِن شَافِعِينَ, and who knows the rest? وَلَا صَدِيقٍ حَمِيمٍ. The people of the hellfire, they will mention, we don't have anyone to make intercession for us, nor do we have any intimate friend to help us out. This is why it's important, ikhwan, that we need to also be very serious about who we hang around. The brother didn't mention, I'm not sure if he did mention, right? I'm going to take a step back. My job in America, what I do is I'm a chaplain. I'm a senior Muslim chaplain for the whole state of South Carolina. Now, what that means, I'm for the prisons. There's 21 prisons in South Carolina. I oversee all of them. I run the Islamic program for all of them. And all the other Muslim chaplains, basically I'm their supervisor. I say that to say is that I'm going to mention several different stories throughout the course of this small talk that we have about the different experiences that I have in prisons. Now, I also go to the female institutions, and I also oversee those who are going to be executed by the state, death row. Okay? And before they execute them, I spend time with them and so on and so forth. And we'll get into those stories, but But we want to talk about, again, the importance of friendship. And we mentioned that that there's no one for us to have, there's no one to intercede for us, nor do we have any friends to help us out. Also, this is why Ibn Jawzi rahimahullah, when he would give a muhadara similar to this, at the end of it, he will also tell his students, ask about me. Either dakhaltum jannah, if you enter paradise, fas'alu anni, then ask about me, because I may need your help. And this is a teacher saying it to his students. So having said, we have to be cognizant of the fact that we need to check off all our boxes to help us out on that day. And having good friendship, we're going to mention the two different things. One friendship that benefits you, and another friendship that doesn't benefit you. But also still keeping to the benefit of friendship. You have another statement by Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, and this is why, based upon this ayah that we mentioned, that we have no intercessors, we have no friends to help us out, he will give the advice, istakthiru astaqa al-mu'minin. Seek to have a lot of friends. But there's a caveat to this. You got to be very careful, because that's a yes and a no. It's like, as the Arabs say, silah dhu haddain. It's a sword that cut both ways, by having a lot of friends. One of the reasons, one of the pros to it is obviously, as we mentioned. But one of the cons to that is that what happens, you become very busy with the problems of other people, and you forget about the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you want to be very careful. And this is why Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah, he used to also be very keen on telling the people, you only need a few good ashab that's going to help you out. Also, we want to mention, inshallah, is that that's for number one, about the benefit of friendship. Number two, and who remembers, the second thing we're going to talk about is the friend that what? The friend that benefits you. First and foremost, we need to talk about وَمِن صِفَاتِهِ. What is this person's type of descriptions? The friend that benefits you, know that he is one that is easy, not easy, but rather he expresses sentiments for you. You have the hadith in Abu Dawood, وَمَنْ مَرَّ بِالنَّبِي صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. That a man passed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there was another companion sit with him. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, wallahi inni uhibbu. O Messenger of Allah, I love this individual. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked him, Hal akhbartuh? O kama qala Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Did you tell him? Qala la. He said no. Then the man stood up, and he told the Prophet and told the man, stand up and tell him. So the man stood up, وَضَحَبَ إِلَيْهِ فَقَالَ أَنَّ أُحِبُّكَ. I love you. So therefore, having said this, Ikhwan, the first point we get from this, you need to have friends who can what? Express their sentiments to you. And that goes both ways. I'm not telling you to be like a yes man. You have to have a friend that can what? Give you some type of advice. There's been several times where in Medina outside, I would go to Ismaeel and I'm hoping he's going to tell me one thing, and he tells me something totally different. It hurts my feelings. All right? Yes.
I'm sorry.
All right. Or even Abdul Hakim. I haven't said that, but you need friends to what? To be honest with you. This is why Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, he also used to say a true friend. Sadiq haqiqi. The true friend is someone who tells you something you don't want to hear. وَلَكِنْ تَحْتَاجِ إِلَيْهِ. But you need to hear it. A true friend is someone who tells you something you don't want to hear. It doesn't mean for you to be disrespectful. Obviously, there's a certain way, certain mannerisms that you need to exemplify doing that. But a true friend, someone who really cares for you, someone who really cares for your soul, akhi ittaqillah. Obviously, you're not going to expose this individual. You might see him do something that is haram, but you may wait for the perfect opportunity to take him to the side. You might send him a message, or whatever the case may be. But the point is, you do not let this stuff go. What happens here, again, a true friend is someone who tells you something you what? You don't want to hear, but you need to what? You need to hear. Because this individual truly cares for you. So therefore, you need to analyze your friends. This is also, we go back to the advice, or we go to the advice of Umar al-Khattab, who said, حاسبوا أنفسكم قبل أن تحاسبوا وزنوا أعمالكم قبل أن توزنوا. Bring yourself to account before you are brought to account, and weigh your own deeds before your deeds are weighed for you on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Take self-inventory. Look at that. Look at those who you hang around. If you die today, it was individual, be someone to benefit me or someone to harm me. I'm going to digress a little bit. You said 6:30, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to digress a little bit. I want to tell you some of the experiences that I have had in prison. Not me being in prison, but working in the prison. Just want to clarify that. You know? So as I mentioned, what happens here, there are countless stories where, and I'm sure that some of the brothers wouldn't mention it, but I know one individual. His name is Hassan. He's in prison. And the reason why he's there, he's actually doing time for one of his friends where, you know, it seems to be cool. I don't know about the youth here in the UK. Alhamdulillah, you guys seem to be good. But in America, may Allah help us. All right? But what happens here is that he's actually doing a lot of time for his friend, who we thought was his friend. He's 61 years old now, and he's been in prison since he was 19 years old. He's been in prison since he was 19. All right, the reason why, actually, and we'll go into detail about his story, but other stories as well. And this Nasiha also goes to women. We have something in America, and Afwan, excuse the expression, we have something in America, they call them like a ride or die type wife or girl. Do you have that here?
Rather than chick.
I didn't want to say chick, you said it. Please. But, you have that, huh? Please, inshallah. What happens here, unfortunately, when you go to this institution, there's 2 female prisons in South Carolina. There's only 2. And I can't tell you how many times when you go to the visitation room, there's a whole bunch of women. It's bigger than this. And the only males that are there are like the fathers. The husband's not there anymore. The boyfriend, whatever it was, not there anymore. And wallah, we give this advice to even the Muslim sisters. Because again, we all have shortcomings in Khalid wa Ayub. But the point is, I remember when I was going there one day, there was one young lady, she was sitting there. And I asked her, you know, where's your husband? Where's your boyfriend? Where is he? He said, oh, he's coming, he's just late. And I remember what happened when I was walking out of the visitation room, the guard, you know, we say correction officer, the CO, basically said this woman is crazy. She's been sitting here every visit for 5 years and her boyfriend never came to see her. The reason why I bring this up, or even vice versa, there's another story where there's countless of sisters, even Muslim sisters. They went against the advice of their parents. And they had boyfriends and so on and so forth. But they end up doing a lot of time, 25, 30 years. But no one, these people don't care for you. All right? So again, if someone is willing to jeopardize your freedom, this is not a true friend. All right? And as we mentioned before, فَمَا لَنَا مِنْ شَافِعِينَ وَلَا صَدِيقَ حَمِيمٍ. You have no true friends. You have no true. And this is why it's important for us to be cognizant of what is a true friend. How we go back to the first description of a true friend is someone who is able to express their sentiments to you. And this is why even Sheikh Albani rahimahullah, he would say the price of friendship is not cheap. The price of friendship is not cheap. And also, it brings light to why the Sahaba, when they would leave each other, they will recite who knows what surah. Wal Asr. Inna insana. Continue. These last 2 things, they help each other, and what's the word I'm looking for? I'm scared to make a mistake in English in front of British people. But they advise each other, they counsel each other. That's the word I'm looking for. They counsel each other in patience and also with truth. But the truth sometimes is not always something that you want to hear. It might come a time where you have to give your brother advice. You were wrong. This is also why some of the scholars of Islam, they mention when you are in the grave. When you are in the grave, and the malaika, they come to ask you some questions, and we all know the questions. The person says, I don't know. I heard people say something, so I said it. The scholars of Islam, they use this, and they say that this is a proof that it's not permissible for you to be a yes man in this religion. Just to say stuff because people said it. You just agree because he's your friend. And you know that he's wrong. It's not permissible for you to be like a sycophant, as you would say, right?
Yes, man, as we know.
All right, yes, man, in this religion. So therefore, again, one of the best descriptions of a true friend is someone who what? Gives you advice. Someone who tells you something you don't want to hear, but you need to hear it. Also, too, another thing I want to mention about the descriptions of a true friend is someone who takes time out to visit you. Wallahi, ikhwan, in hadha zaman, in this time, there's no excuse whatsoever for you not to either visit each other, at the very least, to send a text message with all the technology that we have. All right, one of the biggest excuses that we have, that we make, and that people have a tendency to make, they'll say stuff like, Wallahi, I'm busy. I don't have time. The Prophet ﷺ, ashabahu, they had the same 24 hours that we have. All right? And yet they fought wars, they did a whole bunch of things, but they still made time for what? For their brothers. So therefore, again, we have to be cognizant of that people make time for which they think is important. And also, you should be very appreciative of someone who takes time out of his schedule or their schedule to come and call you or to visit you or what have you. And the reason why we say that, I'm going to digress again just a little bit, but also to show the seriousness of time. To show the seriousness of time. Even, like I said, I work in prison. Even to the non-Muslims, time is valuable. If a person commits a crime, do they pay a fine? Or they take what from them?
Time.
Take time. They take their life away. And I know there's children there, but I want to mention a story about prison. What happens here, a part of my job description is I'm an on-call chaplain as well. So sometimes they call me at 2 o'clock in the morning and I have to go to the prison and have to talk to the individuals and tell them such and such happened. There's been countless times where, unfortunately, I had to go to certain institutions and tell them, your daughter was raped and murdered. All right? But then, and obviously this man is there for a long period of time, but I can't help him go visit his family. I can't help him do anything. But as a chaplain, it's my job to inform him. And what happens here, the reason why I even bring this up is that time is very, very valuable. Well, also, this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by it. And if you make a mistake, you have to be cognizant of those who you're around. If you make a mistake, and we also have something in South Carolina, it's called the hands of one is the hands of all. Meaning, for an example, and I'm going to use Ismaeel as an example. It's going to be a bad example. Deal with it, inshallah. Play. And also Abdul Hakim, so he doesn't feel left out. All right? But let's say we were doing something very bad. Wa'iyadu billah. And Abdul Hakim, he was the driver. All right? But me and Ismaeel actually did the crime. He can be down the block somewhere. In South Carolina, what happens here, when we all get caught, everybody gets the same sentence. No matter if he was the trigger man, whatever the case may be. So what happens here, or also we have something called guilty by association, or an accomplice, or
Joint enterprise.
Joint enterprise, as you call it here. But yeah, we have other things as well, where if you
even if they someone was recording and they saw
recording, or also even if you tell someone, all right, tell someone that person doesn't report you, then you can also get time for that as well. I know someone else where they committed a crime and they told another individual. This one didn't turn his friend in because it was his friend. And when they went to court, the one that he called on the phone wasn't even there, also received a 30-year sentence. Because he didn't what? He didn't tell on his friend. Having said that, don't be around people who put you in these type of situations. I know sometimes we say out of sight, out of mind, but when I see it every day, I see young men coming to prison, young sisters coming to prison, and they die, they never leave. They don't know what it feels like to be in these type of situations. So don't risk your freedom because of what you consider to be a friend. Find out what a real friend is. I don't want to digress too much, but one of the things that we mentioned that it's important for the people to visit each other. Wow, it's important for the people to visit each other. And I want to mention the hadith that's in Sahih Muslim. And actually, wallahi, I know he mentioned the reason why I came, but because of this hadith, this is the reason why I came to visit. Obviously, I love the brother, but this is the reason why I came. It's a hadith in Sahih Muslim. It's also mentioned in other kutub of ilm. What happens here is that a man كان يريد أن يزور أخاه في الله. That a man wanted to visit his brother for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And while he was visiting him, he went from one qaryah to another qaryah. But on the way there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an angel to stop him in the path. And some of the scholars of hadith, they mentioned that Allah sent this angel in the form of a man. And the angel mentioned, أين تريد? يعني, أين تريد أن تذهب? Where do you want to go? The man said, I want to visit my brother in this village. I left my village. I want to visit him here. Now, again, this is suffer. This is not like, you know, how they have the planes back then and so on and so forth. This man left one place to go to another place. But then the angel asked him, is there any reason you visited him? Does he owe you something? Is it worldly benefit? Is it anything? Is it the type of, do you owe him? Does he owe you? Are you trying to hold on to some dunya aspect? قال لا. The man said, no. Wallahi, أنا أزوره لأنه أحبه لله. I love him. I'm visiting him because I love him for the sake of Allah. That's it. It's mentioned in the hadith, and some narrations mention that Inni Rasulullah, I'm a messenger from Allah to you. And I'm telling you that Allah loves you like how you love this man. وَجَاءَ فِي رَوَايَ ثَانِيَةً وَقَدْ أَوْجَبَ عَلَيْكَ الْجَنَّةِ, and Allah has made you into paradise because of it. When I read this hadith, there's no way I'm not going to visit my brother. Because I said before in the beginning, كل بني آدم خطاء. We all have mistakes and sins. وَخَلْ وَعْيُوب. And if one of the reasons we can gain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by visiting our brothers. Notice also, I don't want to say anything as an insult, or it comes across like that, but notice within this hadith, was this man sick? I'm asking the question. No. He wasn't sick. He just visited him because of what? He's a brother. I love him for the sake of Allah. Now imagine how much reward you get if you visit your brother who was marid, who was sick. And it's mentioned in that hadith, وَقَدْ أَوْجَبَ عَلَيْكَ الْجَنَّةِ, and Allah has given you Jannah because of it. What about if you visit someone who is struggling with something, who has been tested with something? The reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is great. So having said that, that's that hadith there is one of the main reasons, as what he mentioned, why I wanted to visit him, because I want to be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and obviously because I love my brother for the sake of Allah. The third thing, and again, we're on the second part of the friend that what? Benefits you. One of the things that we want to mention too, and I got this advice from one of the scholars overseas, and I give you this advice. When I was overseas studying in Medina, one of the mashayikh, he said that you need 3 types of friends. You need 3 types of friends while you're studying, while you're seeking knowledge. You need to have someone who you consider to be more knowledgeable than you. And I'll tell you why. Because when you're around this individual, you will be what? You will be humbled. And you will always look to what? To benefit from him. And then you need to have someone that you consider to be on the same level of knowledge as you. Why is that? Because tanafus, it will also cause you to what? To compete in knowledge. And then you need to be around someone, and again, we need to be very careful with this. We need to be around with someone who you know that may not be as much knowledgeable as you. But the reason why you're around him is because he will kind of keep you on your toes. Did you make maraja? You forgot that? Astaghfirullah. So on and so forth. There's been plenty of times, and I'll mention this as a personal story, where I came to Ismaeel because he preceded me in the Jami'ah. All right, alhamdulillah, and the brother has pointed into me. What happens here is that on several different occasions, I said, Akhi, hafidh kada wa kada, I memorized such and such, such and such. And this brother, I'll never forget it, in Allah's witness, Abdul Hakim was there, he was in the masjid, and Ismaeel was there. And I said, alhamdulillah, I memorized so and so, such and such, such and such. He said, okay, اقرأ من قول الله تعالى, then read from this verse. Abdul Hakim was there, and I made, a'udhu billah, so many mistakes. All right? So he said, Akhi, can you really say you memorized it then? Or you can say I learned it and I forgot. And at that point, I was crushed. But at the same time, alhamdulillah, it made me want to become better. The reason why I say this, Ikhwan, is for you to be around certain people that may not be in the same level of knowledge. They catch you off your toes. And also the reason why the hikmah of having someone that's more knowledgeable than you, someone at the same level, and it's someone that may be not as knowledgeable as you, it will cause the person to have tawadu'. Call the person to be humble. It's not be arrogant in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not be arrogant around other people. And this is the hikmah of having someone that you deem to be more knowledgeable than you. Let's mention the first thing we said about the benefit of friendship in Islam. The second thing about the friend who actually benefits you. The third thing we want to talk about, and we said it was what? What was the third thing he said he was going to mention out of the four things?
The friend does not benefit you
The friend does not benefit you
physically or spiritually.
physically or spiritually. Alhamdulillah, ahsant. What's your name, Sheikh?
Abdul Hafiz Muhammad.
Abdul Hafiz Muhammad. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. What happens here is that I want to mention just an ayah, or a couple of ayat, but from the same surah. Surah Al-Safat. For those who know, there is a conversation that happens between a few people in Jannah. فأقبل بعضهم على بعض يتساءلون قال قائل
قال قائل
كان لي قرين. Notice here that the word that is used wasn't Sadiq. It's what? قرين. ما معنى قرين? What does قرين mean? Anybody? Companion is like, it's alhamdulillah, it's okay translation, but it's even stronger than that. It's like someone that's you always with. In America, I don't know, because I said it in front of him in Medina, and they was like, you can't say that in Britain. I was like, this is my main man. Huh? Your homie. He said, was it Cody or something like that?
Cody.
Yeah, anyway, we say main man, right? And so he's like my main man. He's like, what you call me? All right, but anyway, but على كل حال, he says, إن كان لي قرين. Qareen in Arabic is someone's like, when you see one, you see what? The other. They're always close. But notice here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this friendship and it's very different. Who knows what happens next? Hafal.
and we stop with the
No, what happens next in the next few ayats?
I didn't memorize the ayahs properly, but I know generally what happens is that he's asked, does he want to see his friend?
Do you want to see? But before that, it's mentioned that this person will say, are you truly from those who believe? They used to make fun of him. And what happens here, if you have an individual, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, that you are around and they make fun of your deen, they don't take it seriously. This type of individual you don't want to be around. Because why? You're jeopardizing your religion. You're playing, it's a dangerous game. It's a risk. It's a gamble. And we find out why in the next few verses. All right? And I'll be even more personal. We'll talk about that later as well. When I was in college and also before Medina and after Medina, and actually working in the prisons, we're going to talk about how some of those friendships actually went south. What happens here, the point, the shahid of these ayats that I want you to focus on is that there's one particular verse. قَالَ تَاللَّهِ. Who knows it?
إن كدت لتردين.
And كدت لتردين. He asks the people, this man is in Jannah, and he says, do you want to see who my friend was? Where is he at? مطلعون. He said they would see him and he's in the midst of the fire. This man would say in Jannah, قَالَ تَاللَّهِ إن كدت لتردين. I swear by Allah, kitta in Arabic is like you're on the verge of doing something. For example, kitta adribu. I was about to hit him, sorry. All right? But in kitta laturdin, this man, he swears by Allah that this man almost destroyed me. And it's very important that we understand this ayah, because what happens here, there's no guarantee. Even if your parents are Muslim, there's no guarantee that you will remain a Muslim. Does anybody know if they're going to die upon Islam? By show of hands. I'll even be more personal. My first Arabic teacher, he was subhanAllah, he's very strong in Arabic, but he's no longer a Muslim. He left Islam. You don't know what your life will end up being. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned a person can go to bed a believer and wake up what? And go to bed a disbeliever and wake up what? This is a matter of a few hours. Things change, ikhwan. This is also the hikmah of the Prophet ﷺ mentioning when he would be in sujood, Ya maqalib qalub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Therefore, again, I say this to say, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I say this to say, in Kittalatul, this man almost destroyed me. And had it not been for the mercy of Allah, I would have been what? I would have been amongst them. Be very careful who you hang around. Muslims and non-Muslims. Alright? So therefore, that's also in regards to that. Also, another sifat from the individual that you need to kind of stay away from is those that الَّذِي يُحِبْ قِيلَ وَقَالَ, the one that loves gossip. He said and she said. Namima. What is backbiting?
It's like when someone is gone and then you say something mean behind your back.
See, mean behind, even if it's true.
Or lying about it.
And lying, this will be slander.
Yeah.
Namima is worse. Shit. Because what happens here, for an example, if I'm backbiting Ismaeel, for an example, all right? And then, what's your name, Akhi?
Ismaeel.
All right, another example. SubhanAllah. Astaghfirullah. Ismaeel. But let's say I'm talking to this Ismaeel here, right? And we're talking about this Ismaeel. Now I'll be out of anger. But now I take this kalam and I go and I take it to someone else. But this is ghibah. This is backbiting. It's wrong. But now when I take this kalam and I go to someone else, I'm doing it with the true intention to destroy his name. It's namima. Hadihi namima. Wahada ashid. And this is worse. And also it's from the kaba'ir, and this will be a reason why a person will be tortured in his grave, as we know from several different ahadeeth. For the sake of time, we're going to just jump straight towards the end. I remember, we said the fourth thing. We'll go back to that. Fourth thing we're going to mention was what?
The
Benefits.
benefits of sincerity.
The benefits of sincerity. One of the best things that I heard when I studied in Medina was one of my mashayikh. He said that, and I want you to be, if you didn't get anything else, I want you to focus on these two. He said there's two benefits of being sincere. The first, the first one is that the one who is sincere, Allah would aid him and protect him from shaitan. What happens, ikhwan, with sins, adhunub talit dhunub. Sins give birth to sins. It just doesn't stop. I don't know if here in Britain, but I remember when I was younger, a long time ago, right? When I was younger, my parents, they used to tell me, if the street lights come on, you better be where? Home. They say that here in Britain. No? No. You guys are good, alhamdulillah. What happens here, it was not you.
So what does it mean?
What does it mean what you just said?
So I'll tell you. So what happens here, my parents, they would say you can go outside. But if the street lights come home, I don't want you outside, you need to be in the house. Don't start coming home, be in the house before the what?
The street lights.
So the street lights come on. Oh, come on. What happened was one day, the street lights came on and I was where? Outside. Ta'arafani, you know me, huh? Alright, so it came on and I was outside. But what happens here though, my brother, a'udhu billah, and some of my friends, they would say, listen, you already in trouble, so you might as well what? Make the most out of it. Oh, they do say that in Britain, huh? I might as well make the most out of it. Wallah, it's the same thing with your sins, ikhwan. When shaitan gets you to commit a sin, it says, khalas, you already did this, so you might as well what?
Make the most out of it.
You might as well keep going. You already got her phone number. You might as well call her. It happens, yes or no?
Yeah.
Maybe in Britain, I don't know.
It
Alhamdulillah.
does.
Tayyib.
It does.
You already called her, then call her back. You already did this, then go meet her. And so on and so forth. لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. الذنوب تلد ذنوب. Sins give birth to other sins. It doesn't stop. So having said that, the example is the same thing. But what happens, the person who is mukhlis, the person who is sincere, this person will be protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we understand that. And it's also mentioned Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, excuse me, shaitan, he will mention that he will misguide everyone. إِلَّا عِبَادِكَ مِنْهُمْ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, except for your sincere servants. So the one who is sincere has the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from who? From shaitan. The second thing that a person will be aided with, if he or she is sincere, is that this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will aid this individual in staying away from sins. The person would not be perfect, but he will aid him from staying away from sins. If you look at the Surah to Yusuf, what happens here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, we know about Imra'at al-Aziz, she tried to seduce Yusuf. And he left and he ran. But one of the things that Allah said about Yusuf was what? Who knows? إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. That indeed Yusuf was from our sincere service. قال بعض أهل التفسير, that some of the scholars of tafsir, they say that this is an indication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Yusuf from committing something that was major, a major sin, because he was sincere. So having said that, again, if a person is sincere with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will aid this individual. I'll give you a tangible example. Again, like I said, all the children of Adam, they commit sin. But what happens here, let's say my vice, the thing that I struggle with, well, alhamdulillah, this is not it. I have other sins, like anybody else. But this is not one of them. I'll use myself as an example, because I don't want him to get mad at me, inshallah. What happens here, let's say if your vice was drinking alcohol or smoking. If a person is truly sincere with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe the first time he won't be able to stop. Maybe the third time he won't be able to stop. Maybe the fourth time, maybe the fifth time. But eventually, if he is sincere, he will do what?
Stop.
Eventually, he will stop. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah will aid him. And staying away from sins. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. So one of the two main benefits that we get from being sincere is that Allah Azza wa Jal will protect you from shaitan, and he will also protect you from your own sins. And he will aid you and benefit you and place you around those who you need to be around. I want to mention one quick story too, and we'll stop there because we have to leave at 6:30.
No.
Play it. But I remember I had a teacher in Medina. His name was Ghalib al-Sa'idi. And Ghalib al-Sa'idi, he was one of those teachers, when he would come and give the class, when you left the class, you felt like a sinner. You wanted to get right. As if you wore your sins on your sleeve. And he would just give you advice, but mashallah, his nasiha made me a better person. The reason why I bring him up, because he mentioned a point and I thought was very powerful. One of the things that he mentioned, and we were talking about the issue of Dajjal. And he said that the Dajjal, obviously he will be able to do certain things by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will allow him to do certain things. Miracles, and to the end of it. But also the psychological attack that the Dajjal has on the people as well is something severe. What do I mean by that? What happens also is that in certain instances, it's mentioned in various different ahadeeth, that the Dajjal will bring back people from the dead, and it's mentioned the explanation of that. The jinns will take the form of this individual, and so on and so forth. The only thing that he wants you to say is that I am your what? I am your Lord. Just say I'm your Lord and I will do such for you. The reason why I'm mentioning this, what is the connection between this and brotherhood? He went on to speak about it, and he said that, and I never forgot this, and he also mentioned, he said that the Dajjal also will bring food and he will feed the poor. He said, but why do you think he's so successful in his mission? Wasn't these people poor before the Dajjal came? Yes or no? Nah. And it's also from our deen to what? To feed the poor and help each other out and so on and so forth. But one of the things he mentioned, he said that what happens here is that it's possible that the Dajjal will tell the people, look at these Muslims, these are the same people who knew you were poor and they didn't care for you. They didn't feed you. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. And I'm doing this for you. All I want for you to say is, no, I'm your Lord. That's it. So therefore, he said that the destroying of brotherhood, you not caring for one another, you not aiding each other out, you not giving zakat, feeding the homeless, you not doing these particular things, and in a sense, it can be seen as you are aiding the Dajjal. Because we are destroying brotherhood amongst ourselves. We don't care for each other. We don't make dua for each other. Like I said, وَنَعِيشْ فِي هَذَا الزَّمَنِ, and we live in this time, and there's no excuse. There's no excuse to send a message. Assalamu alaikum, akhi, how you doing? I'm doing fine. I'll talk to you later. Just checking on, make sure you're still alive, akhi. Anything. And this is important for us to be around one another and be around those who actually benefit your religion, inshallah ta'ala. We'll stop here because I'll leave like 5 minutes for questions or anything, because we have to leave at 6:30, inshallah.
Guys, open. You can put your hand up. You don't have to write down, and it doesn't have to necessarily be connected to brotherhood. Anything about the Jamia, about the prison.
No.
You guys got 9 minutes.
It's a big different thing, but I'm in year 11 and I'm going to finish my exam. But we got a letter a long time ago saying that if you finish your exams, there's like a big party afterwards. Like a lot of people, I begged my mom, can I go please, everyone's going that I know. She said no, but what is the best thing to do, even if you want to go, like you really want to go so badly? I know it's, yeah.
So what's the best thing for you to do? Alhamdulillah, the best thing for you to do is to obey your mother. That's it. And also from two different aspects. One, at a party, they have ikhtilat, they have a lot of different things. And what happens here, you have like free mixing. You also want to stay away from that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned in several different narrations, or one narration in particular, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you have no shame, then do whatever you wish. Now what happens here, a lot of people, they use this hadith too, and they'll use it to just do the haram and so on and so on. I don't know about here in Britain, but in America it happens a lot. Alright? But the reason why I even bring this up, you have a good form of shyness, and you have that shyness is mahmud, and then you have a shyness that is madmoon. You have a shyness that is what? That's praiseworthy. For an example, what happens here, and I know this is an extreme example, but what happens, for an example, it has happened several times in America. You might go to a party, or you're around some of your friends, and they may be doing something they're not supposed to be doing. Yeah, like drinking something they're not supposed to be drinking. And they may say, what is your name?
Abdullah.
Huh? Abdullah. I says, Abdullah, like, nobody is here. And I know now you may say it, but peer pressure is something that's very, very strong.
But
Hey.
I was going to say, I'm not going there. I know there's free mixing.
Hey.
They said there's a lot of teachers there. I'm going there because all my old teachers are going. I'm just going there to talk. That's it. I'm not going there to do anything haram.
I know a prison full of people who said the same thing. I'm just going there to talk. I'm not going there for that. I'm just going there to, just see what's going on. But I look at it in all seriousness though. At the end of the day, a man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, who has a more right for me to honor? قال أمك. قال ثم من? قال أمك. قال ثم من? قال أمك. قال ثم من? ثم أبوك. One of the wisdoms also that he mentioned the mom 3 times is that because some of the scholars mention she suffered 3 times. When to be pregnant with you, she carried you, she gave birth to you. That's also a hardship. And also she was patient after breastfeeding and so on and so forth. This is why she has 3 times more right to be obeyed than the father. At the end of the day, you should obey your mother.
I understand that. Like she said, the school called, like, I even said to school, I really want to go. My mom said, I'll think about it. And then she said, let me cook, like, the Somali sheikh that is in the ICT. And then I really want to go. I started crying. I said, I really want to go. I know people that are Muslim are going. Why am I not allowed to go?
Yeah,
A lot of people are going. That's not fair.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, alhamdulillah, you want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And in pleasing Allah is also to please your mother too. So if your mother doesn't want you to go, then you shouldn't go, inshallah. Inshallah, you'll get rewarded from Allah by obeying your mother, inshallah. Yeah. And if there's other Muslims that are there, they will understand that, you listen, I'm obeying my mom. Even though they might not sound that cool, but alhamdulillah.
Just say like, oh my God, I'm getting ready for my conference. Oh my God, I'm getting ready for my suit. Oh my God, I'm listening to that.
I know.
And
What?
so, when anyone says, oh, I'm going, like, you really want to go. But to be honest, it's better than to be safe than sorry.
There's a hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, He said, "Man taraka shay'an lillah, awadaka Allah khayran min." Whoever leaves something for the sake of Allah, you give them that which is better. So I promise you, if you don't go with the intention of obeying your mom, something will happen, inshallah, for you that's better than this, inshallah.
Any more questions, Ikhwani?
Yeah.
We're going to come to this young man, then I'll come to you next, and then Sheikh will come to you. Tafaddal.
Say you're in school and the just went.
Is what?
Just went.
Uh.
And like you're in school, so what you meant to do?
I don't understand the question.
You're in school. ودخل وقت الصلاة.
دخل وقت الصلاة. What should you do?
Yeah, the salah just came in. Yeah.
You should pray, inshallah. And sometimes it could be testing as well. Like, so for an example, I remember when I was in college, and I'll answer the question with a personal story. I remember I was in college, and this is not in Medina. I went to college in America before I went to Medina for a little bit. And anytime the salat came in, I had to go to the bathroom to make wudu. And the most embarrassing part for me when it came time to wash my feet. Because anytime it seemed like I put my foot inside the sink, a non-Muslim walks in. What the hell are you doing? Why do you get your feet in the sink? It never fails. Every time it came, and at that time I didn't know anything about wiping over the socks or what have you. So every time it came down to washing my feet, somebody comes inside, and it was just an embarrassing thing. I say this to say that if you have enough time to pray, one of the beautiful things, you have wajib muwassa. You have basically, if you have enough time, you have to analyze it where, let's say, what's the time Asr comes in now? Well, it's Dhuhr.
Like
Just say 12.
All right, say 12. All right, and you get out of school at 1 o'clock, and Asr comes in at 4. Yeah, you have enough time to pray. But it's a very tricky sometimes, because when you start to feel like, khalas, I'll pray when I get home, and then you find out what? You missed salah. Then now what? That's a sin. So having said that, again, if the time comes in, then you should pray, even if it means to pray in front of other people. Obviously, you're not going to just stand in the middle of a class and just start praying. Allah Akbar, everybody might run, right? So you're not going to do that. But what happens here, if you guys have recess or something. Yeah. You have breaks and so on and so forth. Then at the time when you take your break or lunch, during lunch, you can go to the side and pray. And a lot of times what happens, shaitan messes with you more than what the situation really is. Because I remember several times where I prayed outside in front of other people, and there's been a time where people stopped. And actually, to be honest with you, in South Carolina, if anybody knows about anything about American history, South Carolina is a very, very racist state. All right, it's a very, very racist state. And I remember one time I actually had to pray, and I was real nervous. So I stopped, got out the car, and I actually started to pray. And there was a man who was walking by, a group of men, they were walking by. And there was a particular area that I was like, oh, man. So anyway, they actually stopped, and they watched me for a while, almost until I finished. And afterwards, he said, you know what? I like that type of prayer. What is your religion? All right. So having said that, again, what happens is a lot of times it's shaitan messing with the individual more than what actually may happen. But again, if the time comes in and you have enough time, then you should find a suitable time to step aside and pray. That also goes with work and everything else like that. Yeah.
And you said listen to your mom and obey your mom. And if your mom is not practicing Islam and she brings haram food to the house, and
say it again.
Your mom is not practicing Islam, and she brings haram food.
Be careful.
And
she's not Muslim.
She's born Muslim and she's Muslim, but she has boyfriend, a Kafir boyfriend as well. And you get an opportunity to go to Mecca, and she says no. Can you disobey her and go to Mecca to study like you study in Medina, or you listen to her and stay in a haram situation?
طيب شيء أنا أحترمه لكن لا أجيب. I respect you, so if I don't want to answer, and the reason being, I'll tell you why. Because that doesn't sound like a general question. It sounds like a personal question.
I know someone who
yes,
and they need to know what to do.
Well, generally, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you mentioned that there's no obedience to the creation if it means to disobey the Creator. And I'll leave it like that. And I don't like to answer like personal questions, especially when I'm not from that area and what happened, because sometimes the answer that you give can cause more harm than good. And they say, oh, Abdul Wahaab said such and such and such and such. And then I leave and I go back to America and everybody's like, Abdul Wahaab said this, Abdul Wahaab said this, Abdul Wahaab said this. All right. So those type of situations, personal things, alhamdulillah, you have the imam, you have brothers here, alhamdulillah, tulab al-ilm, they can answer.
I don't know what to say to that individual. I don't know what to say to him.
He can answer in Abdul Hakim.
Inshallah. Speak to Sheikh Mohammed Maliki. No. This is going to be the last question. Any more questions? No, we good? Bismillah.
I have got one question, but I'm going to ask you in Arabic if you understand in Arabic.
Bismillah.
Yeah. هل يجوز الصلاة في داخل الكنيسة؟
So the question is, I'll translate it, is that is it permissible for you to pray inside of a church? All right. So the answer to that question, al-hasab, it depends. And the reason why I say that, all right, and again, I hope it's not like a loaded question, but the reason why I say that is because if a person has the capability of praying elsewhere, not for benefit that he prays inside of a church. All right, but let's say, for an example, especially in my situation, I work in a prison where it's a chapel where everybody is like using the same prayer area, or you travel, you go inside of the airport where there's crosses, and it's a chapel, it's multi-faith, and so on and so forth. The person should try their best to, avoid the idols, and they can pray. They can pray. But again, it's not if a person has a choice. بين المسجد والكنيسة ويختار كنيسة أعوذ بالله. That's فلا ينبغي وهذا حرام. But
somebody has a choice.
Somebody has a choice. He shouldn't obviously choose that. But if it's darura, if it's like he's in a situation where he has no other choice, then that's something totally different. That's something totally different.
Yeah, I have no choice. That's why I've been like homeless, like poor, there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
At that, for an example, and that's why I said, if a person is put in a situation, like for an example, in prison, when the inmates, they make parole, sometimes they go to halfway houses. And they are forced to go to, in Allah Musta'an, they go to, they have to go to Bible study, they have to go to the churches and so on and so forth. And then the Muslims, khalas, they have to pray. You also have the principle, the qaida, is ad-dururat tabihu mahdhurat. That hardship, or rather necessity, mandates concession. So just like, for an example, if you were dying, you can eat a pig, right? You shouldn't start taking out hot sauce and all those stuff. No. I was waiting for this time. You shouldn't do that. But you can eat until you don't die. Until that time, But if you have, again, no choice, you're forced to do it, فلا بأس. طيب.
حياكم الله يا إخواني جزيتم خيرا بارك الله فيكم لحضوركم. We have to go now, but inshallah ta'ala, hopefully, like I mentioned to the brothers, is the first in many visits that the brother will come and share some of his experiences, like I said, studying inside the prisons, and his knowledge as well, because he's a graduate from the Kulliyah of Sharia, and he's got a lot of benefit with him. Barakallahu fikum. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. بارك فيكم. جزاك الله خير.